Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Get Smarter webinar series hosted by Smart Communications. My name's Paula Barker, and I'm a global marketing manager here at Smart Communications. Our session today is titled CCM Migration Made Easy, Tools, Tips, and Tech for Seamless Transitions. Before we get started, I'm going to review just a quick couple of housekeeping items, and then I'll turn it over to our subject matter experts to kick off the session. The session is being recorded, and all of you will receive access to the recording in a couple of business days. All of the lines are muted, but if you have a question, you may type a question in the chat box at any time during the session, and we will do our best to answer your question live today. However, if we're unable to do that, we will follow up with you directly in a couple of days. If you need to refresh your screen at any time, you just press F5 if you're on a PC or Command R if you're using a Mac. At this time, I'll turn it over to Chris Murphy, who is our Vice President of Product Marketing at Smart Communications. Chris, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining today. I'll just introduce myself very quickly and then allow Joe to introduce himself. My name is Chris Murphy, as Paula mentioned. I am responsible for product marketing at Smart Communications. I work very closely with customers, our partners, our internal product services and marketing teams, really evangelizing the benefits of our portfolio of products. We're thrilled that you've joined us today on this topic around CCM migration, and we are very hopeful that we'll provide a lot of value in how to approach it and how to have the right considerations when diving into a CCM migration project. I'm joined today by Joe. Joe, do you want to give a quick introduction?
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Joe Gionta. I'm the Vice President of our Professional Services team at Smart Communications in the North America region. So I'm looking forward to speaking about migration with you today.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Joe. So by way of a quick agenda and just to really keep us all on track, this is how we're going to tackle the topic today. We'll begin to talk a little bit about kind of some of the drivers for these transformation projects within organization. We've been witness to hundreds of these projects, and so we've accumulated some of the real reasons why organizations such as yours pursue migration, the benefits that they receive from it. We'll offer some advice about how to approach and structure a CCM migration, how to understand your existing cost models, for example, and how to prioritize specifically the communications that you are migrating. We'll share some of the technology very briefly that we've developed that we either place into the hands of our customers or partners, or we utilize from a professional services standpoint that can help accelerate some of these projects. And then we'll share some real world case studies before we answer any of the questions that you have along the way. As Paula mentioned, if there is something that sparks your interest, if you do have a question, you can type in those questions at any point, and we'll have time at the end of the agenda to tackle them. And just for real context, right, for the purposes of the audience today, we've probably got a good mix of both existing Smart Communications customers, we've got partners on the call today. When we're talking about migration, we're thinking more around kind of like moving from a legacy solution to a more modern CCM solution, or specifically consolidating some of those multiple applications that you have active within your organizations over to a single CCM solution. There are definitely some points if we have now customers on the session today. There'll be some specific points that will be beneficial in your upgrade to Smart Communications in the future as well. What I want to leave you here today with really is that migration can be a blocker for many organizations, but we have done so many of these projects and we have a specific clear pathway that can help to accelerate these projects moving forward. So with that, before we get into the session proper, I thought it'd be a good idea to get a sense from the audience about the scale of those different communication systems that often exist in your organization. So Paula, if you're able to launch the poll for our audience, please.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
It's launched.
Okay, so based on what you know, for the audience members, how many different customer communication systems do you currently have active within your organization? This could be a CCM solution, could be some proprietary solutions that you have, it could be a communication module that are a part of a customer-facing technology like your core system or your CRM systems. Anything that's creating communications that ends up into the hands of your customers. I'll give the audience just a quick minute to get their answers in. I know we have a handful of partners on the call today, whether or not you're an SI partner or a technology partner. I'd say for those individuals, just answer as best you can with, say, your last kind of like customer engagement. I can see that the numbers are coming in. Joe, if you were a betting man, and hopefully you haven't looked at the responses just yet, where would you say the majority of our audience would sit?
Gosh, I would say probably in the 3 to 4 range. I would hope that you wouldn't have too many CCM systems, but you know, we'll find out soon. So I'm guessing in the 3 to 4 range.
3 to 4. Okay. We've got about 85% voted. I will give just a couple more seconds for those last final votes to come in, and then I believe we're going to be able to share those results with you. Okay, Paula, I think we are kind of like sat at around 85% complete. Are you able to share the results with the audience?
Yes, let me give that a try. I'm sharing.
Okay, perfect. So we had around 42% with 1 or 2, and then we had kind of like split between 25% between 3 and 4 and 5 and 9. So only 8% had more than 10, which is still kind of scary when you think about that consistent brand experience with all the different touch points that you have with customers there. But Joe, your thoughts on the results?
It's not too surprising. It's a good mix. I'm glad to see there's more in the 1 to 2 range than I initially thought, so that is a good sign, but definitely some consolidation to be done. So hopefully these next few minutes will help you with that.
Perfect. All right, Paula, you can close the poll for me if you can. Perfect. All right, let's move on. So let's talk a little bit about some of the business drivers around migration. I think it's safe to say that no kind of IT infrastructure or ecosystem has been 100% purposefully designed, right? They've all evolved over time. You've been working with lots of investments that were made in previous years or even previous decades, recommendations by different executives, and there's often kind of like technology that's acquired through mergers and acquisitions as well. But what this often leads to is this kind of like overwhelming sense of technical debt. And this is really becoming a key issue for enterprises. In the US alone, technical debt represents, this reliance on ongoing, old, increasingly unsupported legacy IT systems. It's an over $1.52 trillion problem, and that's just in the US alone. And I think, for some of the audience members we have, I mean, you're representing some of those older, larger, kind of more established organizations that often make up the regulated industries in financial services and insurance and healthcare. And so technical debt actually disproportionately impacts all of those types of organizations. Many companies have developed strategies to try and mitigate technical debt by trying to pay it down, and it's really a matter of scoping and thinking about how to prioritize these transformations. Either you're going to address the technical debt from these legacy systems, you're going to delay any decisions on them, you might ignore them based upon kind of where a specific system falls on the impact or probability of failure continuum. But technical debt is having real impacts inside of organizations. And this data comes from Stripe, the payment provider, really looking at the impact that technical debt is having on development teams. 52% of developers believe that it's hindering productivity within our IT departments. There's often a hesitancy in wanting to get involved in custom solutions If you saw on the previous slide, like often these have evolved over time, they're often undocumented. The guy that built the technology maybe 20 years ago is still the guy that manages it today. So there's a hesitancy in IT teams wanting to tackle some of those legacy systems. 78% believe spending too much time on those legacy systems is impacting developer morale. And about 3/4 believe that having to work on paying down technical debt is having a negative impact. 32% is the time and resources is spent working on or working around these technical debt within your organization. So it becomes a significant time tax for your IT teams to tackle. And the symptoms that often transpire as a result of this technical debt, specifically around customer communications, like there's a lot of ways that this can potentially show itself inside of an organization. It's like things like having separate departments managing those discrete customer communication solutions, or having separate communication solutions by channel. Oftentimes, we speak to a lot of organizations that have very kind of costly ETL transformation tools that are taking data from mainframes and having to convert them before they make them viable inside their communication systems. There's a lot of effort being used on conversion software that allows you to kind of help within the middle of a process, but often lengthens that communication process as well. So these are some of the ways that organizations that we've worked with have specifically felt the burden of that legacy technology as it relates to their communication services. And one of the other ways that often represents itself is kind of like this real kind of like proliferation of templates within an organization. Often legacy CCM solutions were built to handle a single channel print. They have been retrofitted to add in digital channels, but often not from the same architectural structure. So what has happened is organizations are building separate templates for separate channels, for separate brands, for separate jurisdictions, and even languages. And this just leads to a massive amount of template proliferation. With many of the SmartCOMM customers that are on the call at the moment, that we took a very different approach to this. We call it our 4-layer model, but it really allows us to kind of break down some of those traditional template-centric logic mechanisms into reusable components to allow a single template to be reused effectively and use that incoming data to drive the right content that's channel specific, brand specific, jurisdiction specific as well. And some of the other identifying drivers that we've witnessed specifically around migrations. I think, one of the, we'll get onto advice in a little later on, but one of the key things here around any successful transformation is really understanding the why around any effort that you're making. Is it to pay down technical debt? Is it because you're utilizing an IT system that's not compliant anymore? That's really going to help you to understand and prioritize the metrics, the strategy that you put in place around any migration. But some of the other kind of drivers that we've seen, there could be kind of like organizational strategic directives around customer experience or digital experience or even employee experience. It could be around consolidation of disparate systems. It could be in conjunction with a core system modernization or a shift to a more cloud-centric strategy. So there are a lot of drivers for these types of projects, but really understanding your key driver is really going to help you to begin to structure both a successful and a well-documented transformation project. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Joe for a little bit to talk us through Migration 101.
Thanks, Chris. So we're going to look at how to prioritize, how to plan, and really to overcome any migration blockers that come up during your migration prep and planning. So first off, you need to understand where you sit, what it is that you're starting out with, where your systems exist, and talking about how you'll get those over to your future CCM system. So first off, you'll want to take an inventory. So you have to understand how many templates you have, what sort of complexity they bring into the fold, so that you can plan out the effort that's involved in a migration. Then you also need to look at your integration points. So understanding where your data is coming from. Data, as we all know, drives customer communication. So having an understanding of where those integration points are is vital. Also looking at where those documents will be delivered to, where your communications need to go. Those both upstream and downstream integration points are vital to understand for your migration. Next up, you look at a rationalization process. So this is the idea of consolidating the number of templates that you have. So Chris showed how that proliferation can really get out of hand with your legacy systems. Utilizing a system like SmartCOMM, you'll be able to consolidate based on jurisdiction, based on idioms, based on brands, and based on lots of other features that SmartCOMM has to offer that these legacy systems don't. So you'll have fewer templates to maintain in the future. And last but not least, you want to look at where you can automate the heavy lift. We understand there's a lot of effort that's gone into these legacy systems over the years, and looking at ways to speed up the process is a big part of that planning. So understanding the system that you're coming from and the underlying formats, and having an understanding of where you're going to with the SmartCOMM XML-based system is a big part of the automation. So you also want to know about your existing cost model, because you're going to have to put together a business plan together to get approval and budget for your migration. So first thing you need to know is how many communications, documents, forms, or templates that you have overall. So that is really the long tent in the pole that's going to drive the migration costs and effort. Next, you need to look at, what is being generated today. Are these templates being used still today? Are they something that can go away in the future or be consolidated into a simpler or fewer number of templates? Are you going to be able to estimate the cost of your existing legacy or on-premise maintenance and operational costs? So you need to look at, the cost of your servers, the cost of your hardware and software, the maintenance costs, the support costs, the cost of people to maintain these applications. These are all things you need to take into consideration, and those costs will hopefully go away as you migrate over to SmartCOMM. And last but not least, you need to understand, printing and postage costs. Are you looking to migrate to more futuristic channels, more digital-based channels? And if so, do those printing and postage costs go away? That's also another huge savings that our customers often find. So when you're looking at metrics, specific metrics to make your case, one of the things you're going to want to look at is your customer satisfaction. So will this new platform provide the types of communications that are going to please our customers? Is it going to provide additional satisfaction? And on top of that, because of that, will you increase your customer retention and loyalty? You'll also hope to improve on cost savings, as we mentioned before. Some of the items that you'll save on, include license fees, infrastructure costs, and the maintenance. You'll want to look at both short-term and long-term savings to evaluate your total cost of ownership. Next, you also want to use that information to put together a return on investment. So figure out when you're going to break even, figure out how much over the long run you're going to save and improve on your customer communications by moving to a more modern platform. And last but not least, as your business grows, your modern CCM system needs to scale with you. And so you need to look at the cost of keeping your existing legacy platform and what it takes to scale that up, and the effort and cost of that as compared to a more modern platform that automatically scales with you as you grow, because we all hope that our businesses will grow, and with that, you want your systems to grow with you. So some of the things that you'll need to prioritize to put this plan in place. Customers are always asking me, what should I do first? What should come first? Because you have so many templates over all these decades of template building that you've done. What should come first? So some customers consider volume first. So they want to get as much volume off of their legacy CCM platform as possible. So they'll take the templates that are used the most, that produce the most communications, and move those over to SmartCOMM first. So that's a great way to retire as much of the infrastructure as possible by moving the highest volume templates first. Another approach is doing this at a line of business by line of business at a time. So most customers don't want to take a big bang approach to a migration. They want to take it in manageable chunks. And so a line of business is a great way to do that. You work with one area of the business that's willing to take that next step and provide the proven capabilities of SmartCOMM and build those out. So doing one line of business at a time, especially ones that have the most pain points, would be a good way to go in terms of priority. Another way to look at it is complexity. So customers want to prove out their CCM platform. So oftentimes they will choose the most complex, the most difficult template and build that on SmartCOMM. That way they can show that, if I can do this template, I can do anything on this platform. So that complexity is often a way to go. And also the opposite way. Sometimes you dip your toe in the water. You start with a simple letter and get that going on SmartCOMM to prove out the functionality. So you can go one of both ways, but complexity is often a consideration in the prioritization of that migration. And last but not least, the channels, especially if it's a digital channel. Your legacy platform may not have the ability to send text message. You may not have the ability to create emails. You may not have the ability to do these digital channels. And so because of that, you want to get that new greenfield implementation done on your modern platform so that you can start communicating with customers in the way that they want. So that's a great way to prioritize. All right, so Paula, we're going to do another poll question here. So what are the biggest hurdles to getting CCM migration started? So is it your resource constraints? Are you constrained by the budget that you have? Is it the inertia at your organization? Are people just not wanting to do new things? Or is it something else? So if we can launch that poll and you can answer which is the biggest hurdle for you in your organization. So as
Poll has
we,
been launched.
thanks Paula, appreciate that. So go ahead and start your voting. We'll leave that open for a little while. So Chris, what are some of the things that you hear customers often talk about as part of their hurdles?
I think if there was an option for all of the above, I think that may kind of like be in line with some of the things that we've heard. I think it's often, I think there is always a general consensus that there are better ways that specifically around customer communications could be handled within organizations. Tying it to a project, like a larger transformation project, is often a strategy that we've seen kind of work. But I think it's always around kind of resource constraints, budget constraints comes in a lot. And there's also sometimes just a hesitancy to move away from the known, right? Because there is kind of a certain amount of change management, new learning, different ways of approaching things that that do have to come into play with any modernization effort.
Yeah, very good point, Chris. So get those votes in. We've got about 59% of the crowd voted. So please get those last minute votes in. But from my perspective, working with hundreds of customers over the years, everyone has resource constraints and budget constraints. That's just a given of life in the businesses that we run. But organizational inertia is a tough one. There's so much time and effort, and it's the technical debt that we talked about earlier. Trying to overcome that is difficult. And so what we're going to share with you in a little bit is ways to speed that up, to overcome that hurdle of inertia. through some automation. So just a few more seconds here with votes. We've got most of the votes in. All right, so Paula, why don't you close off the voting and we'll reveal the results.
Excellent. The poll is now closed, and I am now sharing the results.
Wow. Yeah, as I expected, it's a good spread, but it looks like organizational inertia was the winner in terms of biggest hurdle to overcome, and hopefully we'll help you with that. So thanks, guys, for voting. You can go ahead and close that poll. All right, thanks. So let's keep going on. Let's talk about some of those migration blockers that are making you fumble on this migration process. So time and resource budgets, resources and budgets. So these are the most common blocker in any organization. So the way you overcome that is planning. You need to plan ahead. So you have to understand what this migration will take by taking an inventory of your existing legacy templates as well as those integration points. So plan, and plan ahead is what I would say for that. Mission critical nature of communication. So the unwillingness to touch something that's working or that you may not understand how it works. It's so old that you don't want to touch it, but it's critical to your business. Overcoming that is important, and by doing a parallel migration, meaning bringing up SmartCOMM in parallel with that mission critical system and flipping over after you've tested and built out your communications is a good way to overcome that migration blocker. Then you have the sheer volume and complexity of templates. This kind of goes along with organizational inertia. It's difficult to overcome that mind block of saying, oh, I've got thousands and thousands of templates that I need to rebuild again. That just the thought of that is too much for a lot of organizations. So by breaking it down into manageable chunks and proving out that the migration process works, you can overcome these things. You can also look at ways to automate. And so we're going to show you an example of that in just a few moments here, a demo of our automation tools. Looking for ways to automate, but also breaking up into small manageable chunks is a way to overcome that. And last but not least, you may be blocked by incompatible formats and vendor lock. What that means is these applications are embedded within a system of record, or they may be so old and so difficult to understand, it's tough to automate those things. So what I would say with those type of things, again, break them up into manageable chunks, build in parallel, keep that system running until you're ready to move over to your modern platform. So with those migration blockers in mind, you need to start categorizing your complexity. So if those that have worked with me and my team before, you'll know that I ask you to break up your templates into low, medium, and high complexity. So when we talk about low complexity, these are things that are simple text-based communications. They're emails or SMSs as well, and they're usually standard output. So there's not much to them, usually 1 to 2 page letters. Medium complexity usually has to do with more logic involved, more additions, lengthier communications, and more data involved. And then high complexity, usually there's a lot of graphics, a lot of tables that are nested, a lot of personalization, and lots of business rules. So those are usually the categories that you have. And then when you look at our 3 main verticals of insurance, financial services, and healthcare, you can see the types of communications that you might find. For instance, in insurance for low complexity, these are your customer correspondence, those are your claim letters, things like that. And in the medium complexity under financial services, these might be loan or bank statements. And then in the high complexity for healthcare, you might have things like EOBs or your provider directories, those 1,000-page phone books that you have to print out still, or other marketing collateral. So let's talk a little bit about building the right migration playbook. So when it comes to that, you need 3 parts. You need people, process, and technology. From the people side of things, you need to bring in folks who have the experience with your legacy systems and with CCM in general, whether that's internal to your organization or whether that's a partner or smart communications. Those people will be helpful in setting up best practices and a governance model for your migration. Having the industry experience is vital as well. Understanding your business, why things are done the way they are, why communications have to happen in a certain way is vital to that migration. Then you want to look for folks who have done migrations before. So whether that's a partner, whether that's a professional services team, or internal yourselves, there's something to be said about having done this before and knowing the pitfalls to avoid. So look for the right people to be involved in your migration process. Then it's a matter of setting up that process, putting that into action. So you want to be able to evaluate as you go along and benchmark how quickly these are being done and figure out ways to improve that as you go along. So you don't want to just keep doing the same thing over and over again. You want to improve upon that throughout the course of your migration project. So look for strategic consultants to help you in that manner. And also those with industry experience will apply to that business process that you're trying to improve. Last but not least, the technology. This is a very important part of your migration. Having a modern system that can do what you need it to do to meet your customer demands and please your customers at the end of the day. So look for automation, that heavy lifting, that content, that you took all that time to build in the past. Make sure you look for ways to speed up that process. Look for migration utilities that we'll talk about in a moment, and also look at Migration Studio within SmartCOMM that can help speed up that process. So now we want to talk a little bit about having that migration expertise, what it takes to do a migration. So when we do that, we want to look at your automation technology. So 3 things I want to talk about today. Number 1 is Migration Studio. So for those who haven't seen this before, this is a way in SmartCOMM to pull in a Word or PDF document and get started quickly with building out that content in SmartCOMM. So this is a way for you to design outside of SmartCOMM with your design team and quickly bring that in and build out the building blocks of your template. So that's a quick way to get started is with Migration Studio. Another way is taking your legacy template formats, whatever that might be. Hopefully it's in an XML format, which makes it easier to migrate to the SmartCOMM XML format. But if it's not, there are other ways you can accelerate that migration. But looking for our professional services team to provide you with accelerators, so utilities that we've built over the years, and we'll talk more about those in a moment. But there are point-to-point solutions that we built for legacy CCM systems moving over to SmartCOMM. So look for that automation from systems such as Extreme, Expression, Quadient Stopics, Isis Papyrus, Conga, HotDocs, et cetera, et cetera. You see the list here. These are all accelerators that we've built to help speed up that process for you. And last but not least, look for solutions from our system integrator partners. So there's a whole wealth of solutions out there that allow you to have a purpose-built or industry-specific solution on top of the CCM platform. So those partners are willing and able to help you out with these migrations, and we can point you to our preferred and premier partners to do that. So let's talk a little bit about the process and what it actually looks like. So the first thing you want to get a hold of is the inventory of your template. So we talked about that, breaking it into simple, medium, and complex templates so that you can understand the effort involved and also start to review that content. You don't want to just bring all of it over with you. You want to throw out the stuff that no one uses anymore. There's no sense in bringing over garbage into your new fancy system. You want to group documents into similar bunches as well. The reason for that is you'll want to migrate similar templates together so you can learn as you go. as you migrate a type of document or communication, it's going to allow you to repeat that process and not make the same mistakes twice. So you learn from what you did the first time, and as you have that group of similar templates, you can build those out in the same way in a much quicker fashion as you go through the process. Automation is a big part of this as well. It helps you get over that inertia. So you want to identify areas that you're capable of migrating or automating. So that might be the content itself, so the words on the page. It might be mapping of data. So what does your source data look like? Oh, you're going into an XSD or a JSON in SmartCOMM. How do you map that? And what ways are business rules able to automate? So is it a different programming language? Is it a different system that these rules come from outside of your legacy CCM system? How can you bring that into the business rules of the SmartCOMM templates? Then it's also rationalization. So this is done in parallel with looking at automation. Rationalization, again, is all about achieving a balance. So you don't want to rationalize so much that you have only a couple of templates, but they're so complex that they're not able to be maintained. That's not helping anybody. You also don't want to leave too many templates out there, because the functionality of SmartCOMM provides the ability to make maintenance that much easier, so that when you have that logo change or branding change, it's just that much quicker to implement. So having the ease of maintenance is important. So the four-layer model of SmartCOMM, whether that's data, content, process, or rules, allows you to rationalize down how many templates you actually need to migrate over to SmartCOMM. Then it's a matter of implementing this process. So we recommend an iterative process, not a big bang approach, where you're following best practices that are set out at the beginning. And you're also looking for ways to utilize automation when it makes sense. So the implementation is vital, because what you want to do throughout is test, 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 test. So you migrate and then you test, then you migrate some more and then you test. The reason for that is you're going to fix the issues that you find early on, and you apply that to the next sprint. That way, you don't have quite as many errors in the next set of testing, and you automatically improve your throughput. So that means you can migrate more templates in each sprint because you're making less errors. And what happens is at the end of the project, you have less testing that needs to be done. So it speeds up the overall QA cycles. So let's talk a little bit about conversion components and what is made up in terms of automation. So from a professional services standpoint, our team has created different types of automated tools. So the one type of automation we have are for static forms, the other are for dynamic forms. So no matter what you're migrating over to SmartCOMM, you have to do some preparation up front. So that's a matter of exporting the templates out of that system, that legacy CCM system, putting together a schema that will be your go forward data model in SmartCOMM, and also understanding what fonts and other miscellaneous resources need to be set up within SmartCOMM. So that's the preparation steps. Then you look to automate. So static forms, for instance, maybe your tax forms, or maybe ISO forms for insurance industry. They may be other third-party documents that are provided to you that have to stay the same. They may have a little bit of fixed position data on them, but for the most part, they're static in nature. We all have those types of documents that we need to include into a packet usually, and there's usually a lot of these. So we have a way of taking a folder full of PDF static forms and importing those as overlay forms in SmartCOMM. So you get a template with an overlay for each one of the pages of that PDF that you import, and you have all of your static templates into SmartCOMM in a matter of minutes. It's a very quick process. Now, the more involved process comes with your dynamic templates that have business rules, they have variable data, they shrink or grow depending on the content and the data. So again, you need to export out your templates from your legacy system, and we've built many point-to-point automated solutions. So those automated solutions bring in resources into the SmartCOMM CMS. We build templates, we build shared content, we add on to style sets, we create layouts. So all of these resources are created in the SmartCOMM CMS. And for anyone that tells you they could automate things 100%, they're lying to you. Automation is never an easy button. There's definitely some additional cleanup that's going to happen. So usually you'll see about 60 to 80% of an increase of speed to migrate templates with automation tools as compared to automating from scratch or authoring from scratch. With that cleanup process, there's files that are provided to you to point the author in the right place of where to clean up those templates. And so at the end, there's an optimization process where they validate, they touch up their styles, and they create their job setups or their batches so they can create an end-to-end solution. So that's just a quick overview of how that automation happens. So let's take a look at how that looks in real life. So back over to you, Chris.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll just run this very quick video to give you a flavor of what Joe's just discussed with regards to a migration accelerator at work. So as he mentioned, this is technology that our professional services team has developed that brings competitive software formats into the SmartCOMM ecosystem a lot easier and a lot faster than having to rebuild or completely deconstruct that template and bring it in piece by piece. So we're choosing some of the configuration options as part of this utility, including kind of like the source format of the file. We chose in this example a dopics file, and how we want to handle some of the naming convention of the imported resources. We've hit the import button, it's run its job, it is completed the automated creation of the template and the associated resources. We saw that from the project dashboard. And here is just a very quick way that we are looking to render a preview of that template along with some sample data. So it has done some of the identification of those data items, and then applying the preview against that sample data file, you can see how that is previewing right now. So that is really just a flavor of some of the utilities that we have in place. Really the goals for what we're building with these utilities is really around kind of like the consistency of the output, the confidence in what you're automating, really trying to simplify that process and optimizing where possible. If you look at the component level efficacy of these utilities, right? When you think about what makes up a template, those components, these utilities have different levels of effectiveness. When you think about things like text elements or images, those are fairly kind of like high efficiency components that can be automated. You can see some of the benchmarking that we've done internally around kind of like how effective these utilities are, kind of 70 to 80 to 90 to 100% based on text and images. Really kind of like where some of the hard stuff is around some of those embedded business rules, you know, driving the variations of different pieces of content. Sometimes that's very hard to extrapolate from those source formats. We've had a lot of success in delving into those source formats and refactoring that upon automation. But as Joe mentioned, there is always going to be an optimization step in any automation utility that you have. So it's going to be vitally important that, you know, even if we're getting you 50 to 60% of the way there, that those automation and business rules and logic are set up in a way that makes sense with your specific data model that you're using. So yeah, there's great effectiveness, like we've seen some of these percentage levels really increase as we've focused on this area as an organization. And finally, I'm just going to touch on the business aspect of migration, right? When we think about migration, right, I think there's a lot that we can bring to bear from a process standpoint. We've spoken a little bit about technology, but migration is also a business decision, right? There are critical economic considerations that we need to take into account as well. I think one of the things that smart communication has a lot of success around is being able to structure commercial packages in a way that makes sense for organizations to engage in a migration project. That could be anything around kind of like the way that we structure professional services, how we work with partners, but it's also the way that we can specifically ramp specific deals so that you are using less volume on the front end of your contract, and that slowly builds up as you bring more and more of those lines of business or those migration projects over. So like we've matched the way that we commercially structure these deals to make sense for how migration projects typically run, right? So there's a lot that's gone into how we think about this, and really kind of like, you know, the long and short of it is often what we're able to do is like, you know, we speak with organizations that we can't do anything this, you know, this year, it's going to be next year or the year after. We've got ways that we can begin to bring some of those migration projects forward because you're not committing to huge volumes in the earlier parts of contracts. So I think we have just a couple of slides around kind of like some of the benefits of SmartCOMM and some of the success stories that we've had in the past. So I'll hand over to Joe to run through these real quickly, and then we'll tackle some of your questions.
Thanks, Chris. So really, what's important in making sure that your business sponsor sees the benefits and sees the reason why they're investing in your modern CCM system is to quantify the benefits and measure as you go along. So this is a vital part that so many organizations forget to do. So you want to look at the total cost of ownership. So again, we talked about the maintenance, the licensing, the infrastructure, the people, all that's being retired. So you're having a total cost of ownership. So don't look at just the licensing cost of your new platform. Look at the total cost of what you're saving as well. Look at your operational improvements. So are things going out the door quicker? Are you having less errors? Are you able to turn things around faster with your customers? And then agility and speed in the same way. Are you able to turn around new communications to the market that much faster? Are you able to fix issues that much quicker? Are you able to react to what changes in your market and get those type of communications out there that much faster, especially the types of communications that are vital to your business? Are you also reducing the burden on your IT team? Are they able to focus on more valuable projects to the organization? Are they, you know, focused less on maintaining templates and more on new integrations and new features for the organization? Is there a reduction in compliance risk? You know, those pesky compliance fines that you try your best to avoid throughout your different industries. Are there a reduction in those? Are you not paying as much because of the governance model that you put in place with SmartCOMM? And last but not least, that a lot of leaders are looking at is improved net promoter score. So at the end of the day, are your customers satisfied? Are they more willing to be a champion for your organization because you're providing the types of communications that are personalized in the way that they want? So these are all benefits that you need to take into consideration to measure and prove out that it was worth the migration. So let's talk about some real results from our actual customers. So we had one of our mid-market P&C insurance companies migrated all of their templates over to SmartCOMM, and were able to reduce the total number of templates by 82%. So that is a drastic reduction in how many templates they need to maintain going forward. One of our major US retail bank customers had a 260% ROI payback in less than 6 months So when you're talking about building your business case, these are the types of numbers that will get executives excited and a reason why they want to retire that technical debt and invest in a modern CCM platform. And then another use case where one of our huge property and casualty insurance customers were able to reduce the print and mail output by 35%. So just by not mailing and printing as many documents and moving more towards a digital channel, they were able to save over $5 million a year. It's incredible how much money is spent on printing and mailing. So just one more customer result that I wanted to share with you. This one particular customer of ours moved 95% of their contracts to a digital format. So instead of having a more pen and paper approach, they had a more digital approach to their customer contracts, which ended up reducing how many templates they needed to produce these variations by 30%. This improved the ability for customers to self-serve as well. They no longer were reliant upon the customer service organization within that company to provide them with those contracts. And it also engaged in a better two-way dialogue with their customers. The types of communications were more digital and quicker, so you were able to enable a two-way dialogue with your customer. So back over to you, Chris.
Perfect. So now is the time. I did see a couple of questions come in during the course of the session. We'll go to those, but if you've been bottling up a burning question, now's the time to put it into the question tab or go to webinar and we can tackle them. And then while you're doing that, I'll touch on some of the resources that are available to customers. I think, if this is something that has piqued your interest, if you're wanting to learn more about either our approach or how we can provide benefit to your organization, whether or not it's from a consolidation standpoint, whether it's moving or retiring a legacy solution. Probably the best thing to do is to book a migration discovery session with us. It's kind of like a very simple way that we can begin the process. We can help you to determine, as Joe mentioned, some of the metrics to take into account. There are ways we can help you to build that ROI business case internally as well. We've got a lot of data around kind of some of the impact that SmartCOMM can have inside of organizations, and that's something that we can work with you on so that you can help build that case internally. But we do have a number of other resources, including our Learning Academy available for customers. We've got Joe and his wonderful professional services team. We also mentioned like the ecosystem of partners that we have. Like inside your organization, there is probably a preferred or chosen system integrator. Speak to them about what they can do, what they do with SmartCOMM and what they can do to help as well. And we also have for existing customers, we have our customer community available, which has a number of migration resources available as well. So with that, I think we can get on to the Q&A. Paula, I'll hand it over to you to manage, but I did see one that came in earlier on that I thought was a good one around kind of like the migration analysis.
We've actually had two come in. That was one of them. So
Okay.
I think we have time for both of these.
Okay.
The first one is like you said, it's around migration analysis. And the question is this process of migration analysis and implementation offered only as part of a professional services request, or is it available to be taught in-house development teams?
Sure, I'll take that one, Chris. So thanks, Paula, for reading that. And thank you, James, for that question. It's really all about enabling our customers and our partners here. So in professional services, we're here to do the full implementation if you want, but what we've seen work best is where there's a hybrid approach of smart communications professional services working alongside our customers. So we can obviously teach you that migration process, show you how to set up a governance model and the best practices for that migration, and also work with you through a couple of sprints to handhold you through that. So what ends up happening is usually the professional services team starts with the really complex stuff, and our customers start with the more simple templates. And over time, our customers ramp up how much involvement they have as well as the complexity that they're able to migrate. And over time, the professional services team kind of ramps down. But in between, we're having shadowing sessions and we're mentoring you on the best ways to do that migration. So the reason that works well for a lot of our customers is we're both getting the work done, but we're also making sure you don't get stuck. You're not spinning your wheels trying to figure out how things will work in SmartCOMM. And we're also enabling a foundation of best practices that you can follow going forward. So the long answer to your question is yes. We can definitely teach your in-house development team the migration tips and tricks if they want to do it all themselves, or if they want to, work alongside our team or a partner
Great.
for that matter.
Thanks, Joe. We've had another question come in from Henry, and it says, do you have AI-based tools to accelerate legacy doc template analysis?
Yeah, I can jump in with that one. I think there's as you saw, kind of like there are a number of different ways that we've built technology to help accelerate migration. Some of those are kind of customer facing. So like, if you're a SmartCOMM user, you have access to them. Some of them are more kind of like professional services utility, where you would have a professional services engagement. Migration Studio is something that is available to customers, and that's really kind of like, instead of taking the source formatting from a proprietary system, it's actually just taking the final output. So if you've got kind of like PDFs or Word documents from your original system, that tool can kind of help you with the automation of the migration as well. We've explored the utilization of AI with these migration technologies. There's some stuff that we've got some proof of concepts around, specifically around kind of like the rationalization. But what we have found is that there is so much internal knowledge that you have on your specific business rules, on the content. You know that this specific disclaimer is associated with a certain type of letter. That is never going to get replaced by AI. So we've absolutely explored it. I think where we've landed at the moment is that the balance we have without the use of AI is correct and is the most efficient. But that's not to say that we're not going to explore it in the future. For example, we are proof of concepting. We have another kind of product in our portfolio called SmartIQ, which is a digital forms process or automation. We're utilizing AI to extract, kind of, if you think about interactive PDF forms, to extract fields and automate the migration of that into SmartIQ. That's something that we can use AI to really bolster the efficiency and effectiveness of that technology. So again, long answer, but I hope that that helps, Henry, is that we really have a portfolio of solutions kind of like designed to give customers the right choice based on their specific migration strategy.
Thank you, Chris. That's the only questions we had come in, and that's all we have time for today, so we can wrap it up.
All right, well, perfect. Joe, thank you so much. Paula, thank you so much. And please, thank you for joining us today. And you'll get a copy of the recording and some additional resources, but don't be shy. If you do have questions, please reach out. We're always happy to help.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Chris and Joe, and thank you everyone for joining us today. This concludes today's webinar. Have a wonderful week.